Okay, so let's get started with learning a little bit about the annotated bibliography. The annotated bibliography, again, is a way to get information that you need and compile it in a clear and concise way. It gives you a shortcut to your research because it explains exactly what you read in your article whenever you originally engage the information. So it's a good way to capture your thoughts so you don't have to try to figure out where you found something. So if you have 5 articles and all 5 of them are on your topic, they're going to be talking about similar things. What a cool tool when you have an annotated bibliography as a quick reference point to be able to see exactly which article said what on your topic. Let's dive into how exactly we approach the annotated bibliography. I'm going to do a screen share with you. This information is inside of Canvas for you. So for those of us who are engaging Canvas for the first time, don't forget you're going to grab it from your home page. You're going to look for this little icon right here that says Canvas, and then you're going to go into the course. Once you go into the course, you're going to choose from a dashboard of ideas. And the class that I'm choosing today is going to be the section in blue at the bottom. Don't forget you have all of these modules that lead up into this point. And so you'll want to scroll through those modules. You'll want to make sure that you have looked at the content in the modules, and you're going to make sure that you've done all of the preliminary work to lead up to the annotated bibliography project. One of the things that some students do is that they will skip the preliminary bibliography assignment because it is a lot of work to make sure that all of your sources are formatted properly, and it feels like a lot right at the beginning of the course. So sometimes students will skip that assignment for whatever reason, and then they'll try to pick up on the bibliography on the annotated bibliography assignment and go from there. I mean, that's fine. It's just that you still need to learn all of the information in the preliminary bibliography. And the reason is because you will be using the entries from your preliminary bibliography to create not only your annotated bibliography, but if you decide that the sources that you use for your annotated bibliography are not enough and you need additional sources in order to do your analytical and your argument paper, you already have 5 additional sources that you've already researched from the preliminary bibliography to give you content. And so, go ahead if you did not do the preliminary bibliography and still go through the process of grabbing all those sources and learning everything so that you can have everything you need, not just for this next assignment, which is the annotated bibliography, but also for the rest of the course. The other thing that you pick up in the preliminary bibliography that's helpful for the rest of the course is that you're going to have to do a works cited page for your analytical essay as well as your argument essay. And because you have to do these 2 assignments and you have to add a works cited at the end, the preliminary bibliography gives you those sources, and all you got to do is copy and paste them onto your paper. So the preliminary bibliography has a lot of value, and it gives you a lot of what you need in order to do well in the course. The annotated bibliography is mainly for your benefit, but it also communicates to me that you've read the content and that you understand exactly what it is that you are using in your research, right? It tells me that you know how to read, grab the main ideas, and summarize. All right, so let's take a look at what we're going to do. So the first thing that we need to be aware of is that you want to go through the steps. You want to grab your 10 sources from the preliminary bibliography. You want to choose 5 sources, right? Those 5 sources need to be sources that are not just the easiest to read in order to get this assignment done. I mean, you could do that, completely cool, but you also want to pick 5 sources that give you the best content for your topic, the strongest information for you to use. The reason is because you're going to have to write your research proposal, and in the research proposal, I'm expecting that you're using the information from your annotated bibliography in order to put that together. So, you kind of pick your poison, like figure out where you want, the hard work to be. Do you want it to be in having to summarize a lot of content in the beginning, or do you want to have to go back and kind of do it later because the sources that you pick for this assignment are kind of weak and shallow and they don't really give you good content for later work? All right, so Candace, the student, is going to always pick the best assignment so that I can, or the best article so that I can get this done quick and get it done one time. The next thing is that after you choose your articles, you want to scan the sources, okay? And in that, you want to focus your attention on paragraphs that discuss your keywords. So when you go in to do your assignment, you can actually choose keywords. Let's go back into the library source, and we're going to choose an article because I want to show you how to do this. So you go into the library tab, and then you're going to find articles in the databases. We're going to go again to Academic Search Complete, which has this little, looks like a little Texas sign on the inside. And I'm from Texas, so it's probably at least what I'm thinking. It may be something totally different. All right, let's just choose a topic here. So maybe I want to choose a topic on academic coaching and mentoring, right? That's a topic that's interesting to me right now. And so I'm going to choose this topic. Oh no, I made a mistake. I got to go back. I chose academic coaching and mentoring, right? But I didn't put in my filters. So let's go back and try it again. Academic coaching and mentoring. Oh, now I need to limit to full text, and I need to pick scholarly peer-reviewed articles, right? So now I'm going to get things that I can actually use. All right, so now I'm going to do my search. Okay, so here are a few articles. Here we go. Maybe this one. Assessing student leadership development for mentoring, coaching, and advising. Okay, it looks like a good one. It's an academic journal. Okay, student leadership. Okay, looks good. New Directions, looks like a reputable source. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here, right, in the PDF. Okay, so I have this PDF, and now I'm going to start scanning for my keywords, right? So my keywords are academic coaching, and my keywords are mentorship. So here we go, leadership, identity, and developing through mentoring and advising. Okay, so I'm definitely gonna pay attention to this section, right? And I'm gonna scan through here, despite the recognized significance of leadership, college student, blah, blah, blah. Still scanning, leadership education, still scanning, rapidly increasing demands for accountability and education, still scanning, research, yeah, identity development of college students. Okay, that looks interesting to me. Okay, the reason is because I can see identity development and mentoring going together. So I'm gonna look at this information, and I'm probably gonna pull a major idea from here because it looks like it may go with my topic. And my topic is probably something along the lines of advocating for academic coaching in leadership skills in students, right? So the idea of identity development will probably resonate with me. Okay, and then applying a model, oh, blah, 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 through each stage. Oh, here we are. Individual becomes increasingly important, deep understanding leadership, community, and relationship to others. That's an interesting thought. You see how I'm grabbing thoughts, not every thought, but I'm just grabbing thoughts as I go through that kind of speak to what my topic would be. And I'm literally scanning, all right? So because this is interesting to me, I'm probably gonna look at this information, and I'm probably going to create a summary sentence to go along with this because it's talking about stages, and it's talking about self-awareness, it's talking about identity development, and then I'm going to scan through the next one. Notice I'm not reading all of this information. I'm literally scanning. While mentoring, coaching, and advising certainly offer an overlap, leadership development and utility, blah, 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 la, la, da, 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 da. Hastings provides, da, 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 da. Leadership education, I'm not using anything from there. For example, do you see what I mean? So are you watching me go through this process? So I'm literally picking and choosing ideas that go along with what my topic is. And then I'm going to take the whole of those ideas after I write them down and put them on a separate sheet, or copy and paste those ideas to a separate document, right? And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to start summarizing those ideas. Right. So that's my suggestion in terms of reading. You want to scan, you want to look for keywords, you want to grab ideas that go along with what your topic is about, and then you want to summarize those ideas. You don't just want to copy and paste them and put them into a document and call it an annotated bibliography. You actually have to sit with those ideas to figure out what are the main points that are being communicated here, and which ones do I need to grab, and which ones will help me to support my argument or help me to support my topic. Does this make sense at all? Okay. As I mentioned last time, you want to make sure that you're choosing sections of the article that will be helpful for you, right? So right now I'm looking at essentially the introduction to this topic, and I'm going through and I'm reading and I'm scanning to see what type of information I want to use. If you notice, I am not doing a thorough read of this. I don't want to do that at this point, mainly because I don't have time. I have to do 5 others, right? Or 4 others. So I'm just literally trying to figure out where I can get the best content. All right, so here we are, assessment cycle, okay? So the assessment cycle is probably going to give me more insight about how these steps work, right? So here we go, identify outcomes. Step 2, design learning opportunities. Step 3, where is that? Step 3, collect data, right? Step 4, okay, so I'm probably going to put these steps into my annotated bibliography. I'm going to summarize what these steps actually are, and then I'm going to say, the author suggests, 5 or 6 different steps, or 5 steps, and then I'm going to say what those 5 steps are. That may be the bulk of what I use from this article in my annotated bibliography. I may not use much more than that, right? So that's an idea as well. Now, if I go through this, I can also look at assessing leadership outcomes across mentoring, coaching, and advising practices, right? So I could do that as well. I could start looking at the outcomes. Now, do I want to do that? No. This thing has a table. It's a lot of information. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But do you understand how I'm adding and dropping ideas, how I'm figuring out what I'm going to use and what I'm not going to use? I'm literally taking it subheading by subheading and trying to figure out, is this the type of information that I need? Keep in mind, you're not going to need everything from every article, right? So you don't need to try to go through the whole article and grab every single thing. It's not necessary. What you do need, however, is the main idea of the entire article, right? So you want to get to the end of it and see what's there, just to make sure that you're able to capture the main idea. Are there any questions about anything that I've gone over so far? Okay. Now, comments on methods. So what you don't need are the methods. You don't need to recreate this experiment or this study, so it's not necessary. So since you don't need to do that, you don't need to necessarily think about the methods. This has nothing to do with you, right? So you can literally act like this whole page does not exist, because you don't need this unless you're trying to recreate this experiment, right? So ignore all of this. You want to go down maybe to the summary. Maybe because it looks like they are using a summary section in order to kind of capsulize everything that they mentioned in this article, or everything that they mentioned for this suggestion in terms of how to arrive at student leadership development from a mentoring and coaching and advising perspective, right? So I'm going to read this summary, because the summary is probably going to give me my main idea that I need for the entire article. I'm probably going to find it here. You are likely going to find your main ideas when it comes to research articles in the end, in the final paragraph, or you're going to find it at the beginning when they are first introducing the information to you, right? So you can look for your main ideas there. Okay, so are there any questions about how to find your article and what to look for in your article, how to scan your article to get the information you need to summarize? Are there any questions? Now's a great time to ask them. Okay, since there are no questions, then we'll go back into the information regarding choosing sources. So keep in mind that when you're reading, you're going to analyze, you're going to find the main ideas, as I just mentioned. right? Step 2, you're going to analyze the supporting details to determine how or why the author is communicating facts, opinions, statistics, testimonies, and research, right? So you're going to ask yourself some questions as you're reading it. So as you're scanning and pulling stuff, and as you're copying and pasting this information onto a separate sheet of paper, or writing down the information, if you're, a tactile learner, you like to write things, then you're going to still question it after you see it. Like, what's the author's point? What are they trying to get to? So you scan initially to find it, but you need to analyze it after you get it. You can't just take it at face value. You got to learn it, right? So asking questions helps you to learn it. Next, after you figure out how to find the information based upon the keywords and based upon looking, at the sources and all that other good stuff, then you can, of course, select your articles to make sure and start developing your content, start writing your content. All right. I want to do something really quickly before we move on. I want to download this information. I wonder if it's going to let me. I said that, and then I don't want to download it now because it's going to make our time go so much faster. I mean, so much slower, but I kind of do want to download it just because I want you to see another trick for getting this done quickly. All right, so when we look over here and we look at this downloaded information, we now can pull it, and you can actually highlight it on your own. With this information, you can do a key search and everything else, a keyword search, and so it'll highlight this information for you once you download it. So these are just other tools that you can use in order to, again, make this go so much faster, just by using tools. Okay, let's go back over here. Just want to make sure I showed you how to download exactly. All right, so the next thing that we're going to look at is the syllabus connection. All right, so this is just a reminder of how long your summary should be. So you're going to need to have your source material from the preliminary bibliography at the top, and then you're going to have a summary. The summary should be 100 to 300 words to receive credit. Keep in mind that your summaries should be based upon how much content is in the original source. So if the content in the original source is just 1 page long, then it's possible for you to have just 100 words. However, like for the article that we just downloaded, it was 14 pages, right? So that was probably going to yield me at least a 300-word summary for that particular article. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are creating enough content to match the level of information that was originally given to you in the source itself, okay? And by the way, I actually look at that information. I'll download your source just to see if it's, especially if you give me like 100-word summary, I usually download the source to get a sense of what's in there to see if you could have given me more and if you just kind of didn't do it, right? So you want to make sure that you're taking care to do your very best with this. Are there any questions about that? Okay, so the next thing is how to write an annotated bibliography. Okay, so I've given you some background on this information, so I'm not gonna, belabor the point. The main thing is that many of your English 1302 professors are going to request an annotated bibliography. If you take higher level courses, sophomore level courses, you're also at any point perhaps going to be in a position where you'll have to write an annotated bibliography. So you want to register right now that the way I'm having you write this annotated bibliography is very standard, but they may have little nuances and things that they want you to do. Like for instance, I just want you to give me the main points of the article that help to support what you're saying your research topic is going to be. That's really what I'm looking for. They may, however, request that you evaluate sources and say if one's good, one's bad, tell them, the merits of a source, or tell them, the challenges of a source. So just be prepared for that as well. The main thing is that with an annotated bibliography, you are thinking critically about the author's content, and you are thinking about it as it relates to their field of study. You're also proving that you've read and that you've understood your sources, which is really important. Also, you are, you know, establishing yourself as a competent researcher, someone who's actually put in the work to understand the information. The last thing is that if you're doing this for your profession, you know, say you are in a nursing program, and you are writing an annotated bibliography supporting something that has to do with making sure that patients' rooms are clean in a certain way in order to limit bacterial infections or viral infections in some way, right? So you would have to have certain research as a part of your annotated bibliography in order to support what you're saying. And so it makes sense for you to use certain things as it relates to your particular profession, right? So adding something about schools when you're a nurse maybe won't go together, right? So it's helpful in that way. The next thing is it provides a way for others to decide whether a source will be helpful for the research if they read it. Again, it's good for you to know exactly what you are reading and have read to make sure that it's the best thing for you. All right. All right, let's move on. So when it talks about how to write the annotated bibliography, there are a couple of things that you want to keep in mind. Number one, you have to use scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, and you have to choose 5. So if you notice, when I was doing a demonstration for you, I had to go back and I had to check those 2 boxes for full text articles and scholarly peer-reviewed journals. If you don't check those 2 boxes, you're going to end up with sources that either are not scholarly sources, so you won't be able to use them. Even if you do the work for it, I can still reject it and say it's not a scholarly source. So if it's from like People Magazine or, you know, TMZ, that's probably not going to be a scholarly source. Also, you have to have full text articles. If you notice, I downloaded the PDF because you actually need the article itself so that you can do the annotated bibliography. A lot of students, unfortunately, don't click full text article and they end up with something from Plum Metrics, and it's like a little purple icon symbol. And Plum Metrics gives them an abstract, and we talked about abstracts in the last webinar, but it gives them an abstract of the article and it does not give them the full article. So when it does that, then the student can't use it for this assignment or any other assignments because they cannot quote directly from the text. They don't have the text. So you have to have the PDF in order to be able to quote directly from the text and in order for you to be able to do this assignment. So you need to make sure that you have the article and that you download the article. The next thing is that you're citing using what's called MLA. MLA stands for the Modern Language Association, all right? And for our class, we use only MLA 8, okay? So you cannot use APA, which is the American Psychological Association. You cannot use their way of formatting. And you may have used that in high school, and you may use it within your disciplines, especially if you're in the social sciences, like government and sociology, even economics, they use APA, but this is an English class and we use MLA, so you have to use the MLA format. The next thing is that you are to write a summary of the ideas. There should be no direct quotes, right? So no direct quotes at all. If you offer an annotated bibliography in the summary that has direct quotes, you'll get a 0 for the annotated bibliography. The point of the assignment is for you to put the information from the articles into your own words and write them. This is a writing class. So I'm looking to see how well you're able to use another source's content responsibly by summarizing it and putting it into your own words. That is the drill for this assignment. Therefore, direct quoting is a major no-no for this assignment. Okay, next, you want to make sure that you are including a good introductory statement whenever you are writing each of these entries, okay? So for our class, you're going to be including the author's name, the title of the article, the publication, and the publication date. This is in the summary itself, right? So you'll have the entry at the top, and then you'll have the summary under it, and the first sentence in the summary should include this information. We'll look at a sample here in a second. All right, this is important because you'll use this same format whenever you're writing the analytical and argument papers. You'll use this same format whenever you are doing the research proposal essay. So for your next 3 essays, you'll need to write a sentence that has information like this in some form in those other 3 papers. So we practice it initially in the annotated bibliography. The next thing that you'll do is you'll explain the relevance of your work and how it relates to your topic or project, okay? So with this, you want to make sure that you give what's called a summary thesis and then all of the relevant details that go after it. So you want to use transition words that indicate that, you know, first, second, third, afterwards, then, subsequently. These words take me through the article, right? So say I'm given step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5 from the sample source that I chose today. I would say first, the author suggests da 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 da. Then he goes on to suggest da da da. The next step in the equation seems to suggest blah blah blah, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm walking through those steps, and I'm using transition words in order to guide my audience, my reader, through those steps with me. And I'm clearly communicating that this is the way that the article is set up, because that's what the point of this summary is, to communicate to your audience what's in the article. It also communicates how that article is set up. You may decide that you want to pick major details based upon things that are similar, right? So you could say in the search, you know, or in this article rather, the author suggests this idea, and it is similar to this idea that he suggests later in the article. And these 2 things, da 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 da. So you want to make sure that you are using transition words to communicate if things are similar. Another thing that you can do is use those transition words to communicate if the author creates contrast. This idea is like this one, except when the author says that it is this, right? So you want to use transition words in order to make sure that you are clearly communicating to your audience how this information is set up. So that's the goal. The next thing you want to do is you want to use a conclusion transition word, right? So the conclusion transition word lets me know that we are at the end of the article. Yes. So it says, you know, it concludes, she concludes, the results indicate, the outcome suggests, or the author summarizes at the end of the article that, you know, because at the end of the article that we had, if you remember, the author offered a summary at the end. I could scroll that thing back down. The author offers a summary at the end. So then I may say, for this article, the author summarizes at the end of the article that blah, 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 blah. You know, so, you know, that's the kind of thing that you want to offer once you get to the end. If I can get back to my original page. Okay. All right. So are there any questions about those types of transition words and how those words communicate important information to your audience? Are there any questions about that? Okay, let's look at the next section. So when you are introducing information from your source, you have to use communication verbs, okay? And the reason you're using these communication verbs is because you are attributing the author's ideas to the author. You are giving the idea to them so it doesn't come off like this is your idea. This is important, particularly when it comes to avoiding plagiarism. One of the reasons that I assigned the annotated bibliography at the beginning of the semester is so that you can get into the habit of communicating the author's or secondary author's idea as their idea. so you don't accidentally communicate it as your idea. Because if you communicate it as your idea, you can get into very serious trouble with the university or with the college, right? So here are some communication verbs in order to help us do that. So in this case, my author is Daniel Barreau and Justin Lawhead, okay? So then I would say, whoa, I can get back to my screen. I love technology. So I can say, yikes. Here you go. Okay. So then I could say that, Barreau acknowledges that these challenges exist. Barreau and Lawhead addressed common concerns about mentoring whenever they said this, that, and the other. The author explained, this, that, and the other. They remarked this, that, and the other, right? So whenever you're communicating ideas from your author, here are a list of communication verbs you can use so that you don't just say, they said, they said, they said, they said, they said. You want to use a variety of things because how people say things, are different. They compared, they explored, they admitted. These are other words for the word said. All right, so you want to use these as you're writing your summaries. The next thing is that you want to also make sure that you're only writing one paragraph. And again, this paragraph should be 100 to 300 words in length. All right, and I just make a comment here about the same thing that I discussed earlier whenever I was saying that, the amount of content that you have in the original source should match the amount of content that you add in your annotated bibliography summary. All right. And then also just a quick reminder, the sources should still be written alphabetically. And so because they should be written alphabetically, then, that's a thing. So I'll kick it back to you if it's not written alphabetically. And then you'll get one shot to fix it. And after you fix it, I'll look at it again. And the same with the preliminary bibliography. Some of us forgot that. All right. Are there any questions on any of this? No? Okay. Let's keep going. So we're going to look at a raw student annotated bibliography. So this was turned in a previous course. And the student has copied and pasted the entry from the preliminary bibliography. It's here. Okay, so far so good. So the student got a great score on their preliminary bibliography assignment, so they have no problem just copying and pasting here. This is the paragraph that they turned into me that went along with their entry. Okay, so the setup of it is fine. We just need to think about how this information was delivered, okay? Let's take a look. We're gonna walk through this annotated bibliography sample. All right, so again, the student did a good job with giving the right format. Annotated bibliography piece up top, I'm sorry, the entry from the preliminary bibliography, that piece should go first, and then the second part of this is the summary, and that's where we're going to focus our attention. So here's what they originally gave. The article, Emotional Experience with Dyslexia and Self-Esteem, the Protective Role of Perceived Family Support in Late Adulthood, written by Lena W. Caraway, Blanche Nalvany, and Carol Jenkins, takes a look at the effects of supporting family structures on the emotional well-being of elderly adults with dyslexia. Okay, so this is the title. Right? One of the common mistakes students make here is to forget to revise and edit their introductory statements, right? So you want to make sure that you do that. For the introductory statement, as I mentioned earlier, you should include the author, publication, and publication date, okay? So notice that the publication and the publication date are missing in the sample sentence, right? So you want to make sure that you include that. So look at the revised. It says the article Emotional Experience with Dyslexia and Self-Esteem, the Protective Role of Perceived Family Support in Late Adulthood, written by Lena W. Carowin and Blanche A. Novelty and Carol Jenkins, was published in Aging and Mental Health in March of 2016. So now that this information has been included, then everything is fine, right? The next thing is that if you have multiple authors, you want to remove the et al. From your summary, okay? So sometimes students write the et al. In there because it's a part of the original source, right? And some of you guys may not know exactly what I mean, but if you have an et al. As a part of your source material, you want to remove it and you want to actually write the author's names. All right, et al. Just means multiple authors, okay? The next thing is that you want to make sure that you are revising according to the appropriateness of the assignment, right? So with this, you could say Lena W. Carowin, Blanche A. Novelty, and Carol Jenkins. That would represent that et al. Thing. You can just put their names in here. Or you can do Lena W. Carowin and her team of researchers, and that can replace the et al. Either one of these is fine, all right? And you can use that in not only the annotated bibliography, you can also use the same format when you're writing the research proposal, analytical essay, and argument essays. Next thing, you want to make sure that you edit for capitalization, punctuation, and italics in the introductory statement. So we deal with those things in the preliminary bibliography. We have to edit in this way there. You also have to do it here. That's kind of why I make you do it in the preliminary bibliography so you can see it more clearly when you're writing your essays and paragraphs. So here you want to capitalize the author's last names. You want to capitalize the author's names, the titles, journal articles, and dates, right? So pay attention to all your capitalization rules. The next thing is that you want to make sure that you have quotation marks around the articles, even in the paragraphs, the same way that you do in the preliminary bib with the entry. You also want to keep that same energy and that same format whenever you deal with when you deal with the summary assignment. All right, keep in mind that the journal articles are not italicized. They just have quotation marks around them. Just a quick bit, short reading selections have quotation marks and longer reading selections are italicized, okay? Don't ever forget that. So poetry, all poems have quotation marks, but all novels are italicized. So it's just an easy way to remember. And with that said, the journals are italicized, and the journals are italicized because they use, or they have several articles in their journal, right? So it's kind of like a longer text, right? So you need to italicize all the journals. Keep in mind that communicates to your reader, this is a long article. This is a long text. And then also your dates need to be written properly, okay? So in March of 2016, that's okay. On March 3rd, 2016, that's okay. March 3rd, 2016 looks like March 3, 2016. It does not look like March 3 RD, all right? You only use this March 3 RD thing whenever you are already within a calendar year and you're emailing or you're directly communicating with someone and you're saying March 3rd. It's a very casual way to approach it, right? When you're writing something formal, then you always want to use this format, and that's for work or for English class. It doesn't matter. You want to know the distinction between the two, but this is never okay. Just this, March 3rd. And this is not okay at all for this assignment. Okay, moving on. All right, another way you could do this is by saying in the spring of 2019, right? So you want to make sure that you are working with the information that you have. So sometimes you don't have a specific date. Sometimes you just have a month and year. Sometimes you have an edition, like the spring edition of something. And then sometimes you have a specific date. But here are the 3 ways to write that information. So the revised introductory statement is going to look like this. Everything's going to be capitalized properly, and you are going to now have all of the information needed for the introductory statement. Do you see how everything has been fixed? Okay, good. All of the parts in red are the edits. Are there any questions at all on anything that I've gone over so far? Anything at all? Any questions? Okay, are we doing well? All right, let's keep going. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now that we've revised the introductory statement is we are now going to look at the summary thesis. The summary thesis is the main idea of the paragraph, right? Keep in mind in the article, I said that it probably is going to come at the beginning and or at the end, right? So when we think about the summary thesis, it would probably show up in the same way in your paragraph, either at the beginning or at the end, right? Preferably, this information would be communicated at the beginning, mainly because it makes sense that you offer an introductory statement that leads into the main idea of the article. It's just intuitive. However, some students choose to write all of the details first and put the summary thesis at the end. All right, so let's take a look. All right, so for this article, let's take a look at what the student did. It says it takes a look at the effects of supporting family structures on the emotional well-being of elderly adults with dyslexia, right? So we would revise this by doing a couple of things. The first thing that we need to do is we should put in words that communicate that this is a summary thesis. So adding words like overall message or primary point helps us to communicate to your audience who's not read this article that this is the thesis, this is the overall message, this is the main thing that the author is trying to get across to the reader. The next thing you want to do with the summary thesis is that you want to edit for small errors, okay? Because it is the main idea of this paragraph and it's the one thing I should walk away from your paragraph knowing, you want to make sure that you edit for small errors in the thesis. That's one of the sentences that can't really stand to have any small errors. The rest of them, maybe. The summary thesis, no. All right, so here's what we would do. We would edit for this. So look at the revised. It says the article primarily focuses on the effects of supporting family structures on the emotional well-being of elderly adults with dyslexia. Now, your audience clearly knows that this is the main idea of the sentence and it's stated clearly and concisely. Any questions at all on the summary thesis? Okay, let's look at revising the body and conclusion statement of the annotated bibliography. Okay, so there's just a couple of key points in here. I'm not going to read the entire paragraph because we just simply don't have the time to, and it would be really, really cumbersome for me to do that. It would just be a lot of information. So let's just talk about some main points. The first thing is that you want to revise the information in the body of the paragraph to make sure that they're ordered logically. I spoke a lot about this on a previous page when I was going through the different transition words that should be used in order to communicate how this paragraph is set up and how the author's information from the original source is being communicated, right? So you want to use small things like words that say, finally, he offers more details to let me know that we're kind of at the end of an idea. You want to use words that say, according to the research, in order to make sure that you're attributing the idea back to the original author. All right. And so you want to make sure that these transition words are there. And I actually look for them in this assignment to see if you are able to communicate effectively how the original article is set up and how your content in the annotated bibliography summary is set up for me. I look to see if you're aware of it. The next thing is you want to make sure that you revise your sentence structure to make sure that your information is intended to inform, okay? So you want to make sure that you are being very clear and concise, all right? You want to make sure that the information is focused on your topic and not just random general stuff that has nothing to do with your topic included in this paragraph. The only thing that should be off subject from your topic, if necessary, is going to be that summary thesis, because the main idea of the article is just the main idea of the article. It is what it is. But the body should definitely include stuff about the stuff that's only relevant to your topic. The other thing is that you want to make sure that you're editing for minor errors, right? So here's the point where you want to pay attention to spelling errors like homophones, right? So in our sample, he uses the word affect, and it should actually be effect or effect. And so you want to make sure that you're using the right version of things. You also want to make sure that you correct small typos. For instance, in our sample, the becomes they, and aging becomes aging, right? So again, this is a small spelling error. This is just, you forgot to put the Y. Everybody does that. So it's not like, it's a huge deal. It's just something that you want to take care of before you submit your final draft. But if it's in a rough draft, it is what it is. We all make those kind of mistakes. The next thing is you want to remove that et al. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you only want to use the primary researcher's name, or you can replace it with words like team, group, research fellows, scholars, etc. All right. And so when you revise the body, now all of a sudden we have these different things. So we have editing things that we've done, which are in red, and we now have different types of transitions included, which is in blue. And then we have those major points that needed to be included. Those are in green. Okay. And so hopefully you see that, these types of edits are necessary, and it's what I will expect that you have done before you turn in the final draft of this assignment to me. Next, the conclusion statement, which is the final part of this assignment, will need to have words that signal that we've reached the conclusion of the paragraph. A lot of times students just kind of drop the mic after giving me the final major detail from the source, and they don't tell me that we've reached the end, and this is what's in the conclusion. So we mentioned how to do this in a previous slide with words like he concludes, she concludes, or they conclude, or the results, or the findings, and all of these things. All of these words can be used in order to communicate that we've reached the end of the article. In this sense, you want to make sure that you're editing, not just for spelling and not just for, small typos. You want to make sure that you're looking at run-on sentences, right? If you have a run-on, you want to make them two separate sentences by using coordinating conjunctions or a semicolon. You want to edit for fragmented sentences. If you have a sentence that, is missing a subject, or it's, a fragment because it's only a dependent clause. It starts with the word if, but you never give the then, that type of thing, then you want to make sure that you're editing for fragmented sentences, okay? And so you want to be clear, because again, it's the last sentence that I'll read, and so it needs to be really written nicely because it's the last sentence. The things in between, sometimes we miss, but usually as graders, we pay attention to the first and the last for sure. So here's the revised one. The students said the researchers conclude that each generation's differing experiences will need to be taken into account to support them in the best way. Originally, this was a run-on because the student had all of this fused. This study begins to shed light on that need, okay? And here's your conclusion transition word here, conclude, all right? So this is how you revise the body and the conclusion statement. Are there any questions for me on the body and the conclusion statement? No? Okay. So here's the original. Okay, again, notice that the structure of it is right? Entry, summary. Here's a revise. Still we have the entry, and now we have the summary. Okay, so this is a type of revision and editing that you should do before you turn in this assignment to me. And you have to do this 5 times. So if you've not started on this assignment, you definitely want to start today so that you have enough time to go through this, this process of making sure that you have studied your own summary and fine-tuned all the details. And here's the thing, and I want to make sure I say this. The information I'm teaching you right now is not something that is in a vacuum. I'm literally teaching you from the very beginning how to edit your work, how to look at small chunks of information with a fine-tooth comb so that you are able to do this more efficiently and effectively once you write a larger paper. So if it feels like it is a lot, it is because it is. I am teaching you a lot in the beginning in order to make your path super easy at the end. And when you start coasting along because you did this work in the beginning, you will thank me for it. But for now, you probably, up under your breath at least, curse me. And it's okay, I'm okay with that. Okay, so I put a little note at the bottom of that screen. For those of you who are paying attention, you kind of know exactly what I said at the bottom of that screen, so you want to read it if you didn't. Hint, hint, hint. Okay, so here's what we're doing. You have a sample annotated bibliography. All right, there are only 4 entries here. For your assignment, you're going to need 5. All right, so let's take a look at what your assignment looks like. After we move past our TL labs. Here we go. After we move past this information for the discussion question, here we go. Now we're here to the assignment. Okay, so let's take a look at the assignment. Okay, so for the assignment, I'm going to put it in student view so you can see it. I love it when they kick me all the way out and I have to start over. It's so much fun. All right, so let's take a look at the assignment. Here we go, annotated bibliography assignment. So you're going to go to a screen like this, and here are all your objectives. It's everything that I just covered. And you're going to click on Take the Quiz. All right, once you click on Take the Quiz, you're going to get these text box, right? So you're going to put your entry up here. I'm just going to borrow an entry from another place just to make my life simple. Okay, so you're going to borrow the entry. Oh, it's going to take forever. Come. All right, any minute. Okay, so you're going to borrow the entry. I'm going to borrow our sample entry. Let me go back in and grab it. Okay, thank you for your patience. Okay, so I'm going to grab this entry. Here we go. So I'm going to grab this one. And you would do the same thing if you grabbed it directly from your Word document or Google Docs, whatever you're choosing. All right, and then I'm just going to copy and paste it right in here. There you go. Now, when I copied it and pasted it, look at what happened. All right, so A, it told me all the problems with that one, hint, hint, hint. And then B, it's going to give me an opportunity to make my life great. So here we go. So I have the authors here. It translated all of the content for the article there, but aha, this did not italicize. So there you go. I'm italicizing it now. All right, I fixed it. Okay, cool. Now I'm gonna go down here to EBSCOhost because that should also be italicized. Yep, it's all fixed now. and my access date is cool. Everything else is there. My hyperlink is working. Okay, so now I want to go through and now I want to fix all of these because I see that this is an issue. Did you guys just notice something that happened right there? Look at that. Grammarly picked that up. That was my final tip. For you guys who feel less confident about your reading, grammar, writing skills, you will not go wrong by downloading Grammarly and attaching it to your laptops, to your desktops, or to your phones. It is the gift that keeps on giving, and it's free, right? So you can download it for free. If you want to upgrade to the more sophisticated version of it, then it's going to save you a ton of time in terms of editing. And so you will love it as much as I do. So I strongly recommend that you download Grammarly to help you edit all of your work, all right? And that's pretty much the webinar for today, all right? If you would, feel free to ask away in terms of questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and answer any questions that you may have. Does anyone have any questions at all? Okay, there are some questions in the chat. I'm going to address them. It says on a certain PDF I'm using, they have a conclusion paragraph instead of a summary paragraph. Can I use that instead? The answer is yes. You can definitely use the conclusion paragraph. Most of them are going to say conclusions or findings or results. Very, very often they may also say summary, but you may use any of the ways that those authors communicate their concluding thoughts. All of them, all that's fine. Okay, so the next question is one paragraph for 5 cited sources. Yes, so you should have 5 sources and a paragraph for each source. Another question. I think the conclusion paragraph works as long as it's the main idea of the article, not just one statement. Some articles also have a results page, which I think are the same as well. That's a great comment. I'm glad that you responded to your classmates in that way. Just for clarity, you want a single sentence for the conclusion paragraph. You don't have to write a ton of information, all right? Are there any other questions? Okay, for those of you guys who want to stay on and ask additional questions, feel free. For the rest of you, thank you so much for your time today and do have a good day. Bye.